You're on the Bible Forum. I'm Warren Sprouse. I want to talk to you tonight about California. They're changing their sex education curriculum. ProphecyNewsWatch.com tells us that the California Globe reported May 9th of this year, a couple months ago, that, quote, despite hundreds of parents protesting and testifying, on Wednesday, the California State Board of Education approved highly controversial changes to the state's health and sex education framework, including teaching children about bondage, anal sex, pederasty, that's sex between an adult and a child, sex trafficking, sexual orientation, transgender, and non-conforming students. One book recommended the transitional kindergarten was recommended for transitional kindergarten through third grade and includes what the article calls graphic close-up illustrations of child-adult genitals and the sex act itself, and all of this for children ages 6 through 9. Another book also recommended for the same age group teaches kids they can be a boy, a girl, both, neither, genderqueer, or gender fluid, and so forth, and that adults guess a child's gender based on body parts. They guess, but they don't really know. As for high school students, one textbook introduces or encourages anal sex for all sexual orientations, BDSM, that's bondage, domination, sadomasochism, body fluid, urinating on one another, or blood play, fisting, and a long list of other sexual debauchery. These are terms, phrases we don't hear. We don't talk like this. And if you blush while reading these words as an adult or don't know what some of the terms mean, can you imagine teaching this to high school kids or younger? Kindergarten through third grade kind of thing? Yeah, it's adults, many of them parents, who approve of trash like this. I read an article this week that bemoaned the fact that there were so few medical doctors in America of color. So I did some research. The U.S. population 2019 was set at 250,500,000. I'm assuming that's adults, because we got over 300. 14.2 million white doctors, based on the 250,500,000, is a 56.2% spread of the adult population. 56.2% of the doctors, I guess, are white. Among the black population, that number jumps down to 1.56 million black doctors. But the percentage is 14.5%, because there are only 47.8 million black adults or people in the country. I don't know. It was hard to catch the right statistic for this particular thing. But I just read the article, and it seemed to say that all of this was my fault. It's my fault that 56% of the population, 56% of the doctors are white, and only 14% of black population are doctors. It's my fault. Not me personally, I didn't do anything, but my people, those who have no real pigmentation to their skin. And it's done as though any of us get to choose. And this majority group is somehow keeping others from getting ahead. Personally, I don't know how I've done that. But you do know that in America, at least in the last 60 years, there has been no official limitation imposed on anyone who wants to be a doctor. In fact, it's been just the opposite. Since 1965 and President Johnson's Great Society, the purpose was to eliminate poverty and racial injustice through legislation. It hasn't really worked that way. You see, no government policy can change how people respond to other people. Excuse me. We've opened the doors to our secondary education system. We've moved heaven and earth to try to make sure the minority population has what they need. We've spent trillions of dollars to change the way people think and act toward others, and generally it's worked. 1.5 million black medical doctors, not counting nurses and technicians, and a host of other medical personnel. But what's missing in all of this? What's missing is a changed human heart. Where you find serious discrimination against people for no more than their skin color, you're looking at sin. The God of this universe created us all, and we all created the same. We're human beings made in the image of God. We have interchangeable parts. Some of us have pale skin, and those who do are the physically weaker of what we call the various races. And because they're weaker, they focus on technologies, no doubt. Today we have it so easy, it's killing us off. But getting back to the point, the society that seeks to elevate one group artificially is doomed to fail. Telling me how I should treat someone else because it's the right thing to do. Telling someone else who sees the right thing to do as that which benefits them. That's what's undermining the entire program. Parents have, for the last 50 years or so, not been raising children. They've been working. They've been playing. They've been pursuing pleasures. School teachers have been teaching their children the right thing to do. These children, many of whom have been in nursery schools, preschools, after-hour programs instead of home, doing homework and chores under the watchful eye of parents who have a larger view of life as it stands. Parents who thereby pass along traditional values, morality, financial information, family, and so forth. Parents who structure their children's lives so they know structure. Parents who introduce them to positive things of life and point out the not so positive things as they go. Parents who take their children to church so they can learn just why they're here and what is the most important. Parents who regularly intermingle with the extended family to give context. All that and more is largely gone. Much of it is gone because of stuff like this and computers and all the rest. Nobody's home when they're home. Today, children develop their own value system. They're indoctrinated by their school teacher's value system and worldview. Children who are told they can be anything they want to be, only to leave home, if they ever do, and learn that they can't be anything they want to be. That in order to get ahead, they must conform. Of course, they never had to before. They never knew the value of it. And they have to seek to get ahead, to benefit from the American dream. It doesn't just fall in their lap. They were trained to believe that all these good things are just theirs for the asking. The human heart is basically selfish. It wants what it wants, when it wants it, how it wants it. And every human being is born into this world, a baby, a child, with that kind of heart. And the Bible says it's a sinful, corrupted, deceitful, and wicked thing, our heart. Not the pump, the basis of our being. Various nations of the world provide the illustrations. Whole groups of people, the majority, have rejected the one true God of heaven in favor of their own opinions. The religious have created their own gods with a differing value system. The pagans have created their value system and rules. Think China. Our children come in contact with them and see that their religious ways are much easier. They don't actually have to do right as long as they go to church, mosque, temple, or simply worship the gods of nature. Which brings me back to the original premise. If there are less medical doctors in America with dark skin, how is it that's my fault? Well, of course it's not. I didn't do anything to harm them. But the system that favors people like me has, and that's the argument, that the family structure has been abandoned, that the biblical values upon which this nation was founded has been abandoned, that decency, honesty, integrity, and all the other godly character qualities have been abandoned, that self is now the only purpose in life, the me, the my, the mine philosophy, now being acted out on our city streets, largely in the dark of night with intense violence, that individuals believe that they are supposed to ignore a policeman's orders, that people believe they can destroy other people's property and livelihood, that a growing majority believe government exists to give them what they need. All this and more are products of the Great Society. A philosophy that said the government exists to lift people out of the gutter and establish them on solid ground, to give them money on which to live. Before you get too crazy, you have to understand that the world is destined to devolve into spiritual chaos. The Bible clearly teaches this situation. And it's a hopeless situation for those who reject God. At the same time, it's a glorious situation for those who love God. For God will remove those people before all this either begins or gains strength. Today, a majority of Americans and nearly a third of evangelicals say Jesus was but a good teacher, not necessarily God. That from a new survey by Ligonier Ministries conducted by Lifeway Research. All told, according to the survey, 52% of Americans say they believe Jesus was a good teacher, but he was not God. Now, the poll's finding about the general population may be shocking, or it may not. Ligonier Publications said it's surprising that nearly a third of evangelicals, 30%, affirmed that statement and believed Jesus was simply a good teacher and nothing more. 30% of people in evangelical churches. 66% of evangelicals disagree with the statement. The confusion illustrated in these results suggests a dire need for Christians to be taught Christology, the doctrine of the person and work of Jesus Christ. The question was part of Ligonier's biannual State of Theology survey. While 65% of evangelicals believe Jesus is the first and greatest being created by God, a statement, by the way, that conflicts with the Bible narrative, Christ's deity and eternality are taught in such passages as John 1:1, John 8:58, Romans 9:5, and Hebrews 1, verses 1 through 4. Statistics like these from the State of Theology survey can give us a quick look, but they also shed light on the concerns that many American Christians and churches have and have expressed for decades. As the culture around us increasingly abandons its moral compass, professing evangelicals are sadly drifting away from God's absolute standard in Scripture. Under the heading of Life is Hard and Then You Die, I suggest to you, make the best of what you have. Students at New York University and Rice University have begun petitioning for segregated housing. They're demanding a blacks-only area. Campus Reform reported NYU officials already are moving on the idea. Spokesman John Beckman says, "We appreciate the petition author's position. The staff have reached out to the authors of the petition to discuss how we might move forward with their goals," he said. The New York University News reported seniors Brenna Johnson and Nia Robinson made the request after concluding the university did not adequately address the needs of blacks, saying there is nothing to protect us, literally no systems in place. What do you do when your professor is racist and wants to take it out on your grades? Microaggressions in the classroom discussions. They began a student group called Black Violets, which calls for protections for black students on campus. It's lobbied for more black professors and dorm floors dedicated to blacks. The report said their petition for black housing has gained attention in the Student Government Assembly, where sophomore Shaman Lawrence was enthusiastic about it, saying, "I found out about Black Violets and the work they were doing through their petition, and I wanted to be on the forefront of asking for those important structural changes," Lawrence explained. Jesse Maloney, the president of the Inter-Residential Housing Committee, has also been lobbied to join. Campus Reform said the Black Student Association of Rice also has issued a list of demands that includes funding of a black house. "We demand that Rice invest in creating a non-residential black house that has all the features of a residential college but is specifically made for black students and black organizations to congregate, to hold events." Other demands included the decolonization of Rice's entire curriculum and the elimination of a statue of William Marsh Rice, for whom the university is named. Campus Reform noted that in 2019, a National Association of Scholars report raised the idea of neo-segregation at Yale. It said American colleges and universities recruit blacks and other minorities, but foster campus practices that, quote, encourage these students to form separate social groups on campus, end of quote. A socialist website said New York University has given a green light to segregated housing by next fall. The report said black students need a safe space where they can be protected from other races. The Twitter news aggregating blog Twitchy noted an ironic twist to the story. They said, if Donald Trump won the election, we'd return to the days of racial segregation. It looks like they were right, only it's working on the opposite side. And I think that's what people are not paying attention to. We're not solving a problem here. We're creating a second problem. And it's going to get worse.